Morning everyone. We are the group 1 who's assigned to discuss the topic of Encyclical letter Laudato Si of the Holy Father Francis on care for our common home. The members of Group 1 is Angulo Jamaica, Arenas Joan Aria S., Aya Sohares, Balaong Shikaina Joy, and Balintos Jesslyn. So back to the topic. In Laudato Si, to every living person on this planet, as a result, it is presented as part of an ongoing debate with the Catholic Church and between Catholics and the rest of the world. The topic of an encyclical is often derived from the first words of the document. That is, encyclicals are not given a topical title, but rather by their introductory line, which is often evocative of the work's main idea. The first words of Laudato Si are Italian and translate as praise be to you. They are part of a quote from Saint Francis of Assisi's Canticle of the Creatures, which starts the encyclical and in which the saints celebrate God by reflecting on the kindness of the sun, wind, earth, water, and other natural elements. The choice of this passage to begin Laudato Si is a reminder that people of faith should not only protect the earth, but also praise and honor God via their participation with creation. In Chapter 1, what is happening to our common home? In Pope Francis referred to the earth as our home, and as with by any residence, we must take care of it. However, the Pope has stated that we have not been effective stewards enough. He identifies the rapidation of society as a widespread in issues, in contrast to the slower tempo of nature and change. Human activity has accelerated, resulting in more intense pace of life and work. This rapid pace has caused us to disregard some widespread environmental and social concerns that are slowly but surely looming over our planet in a perilous manner. Pope Francis equates a concern for our natural ecology and our human ecology, insisting that the two are identical. He cites a number of significant issues, such as pollution and climate change, water issues, the loss of biodiversity, the decline in the quality of human life, the disintegration of society, and global inequality, to which weak human responses are given. We have the key points. Under of the key points, we have section 1, the pollution and climate change, pollution, waste, and the throwaway culture. Next is climate as a common good. Next is we have the section 2, the issue of water. Then under of this, we have the depletion of natural resources and exploitation of the earth, meaning the highlights of the unsustainable extraction and utilization of natural resources, which leads to the depletion. This includes activities such as deforestation, overfishing, and mining, which disrupt ecosystem and reduce biodiversity. Next, we have decrease of fresh drinking water, meaning fresh drinking water is essential for human survival and the health of land and aquatic ecosystem. However, the availability of fresh water is decreasing due to various factors, including increased demand, pollution, and climate change. Next, we have water poverty and lack of access to safe drinking water. Many regions, particularly in Africa, face water poverty, where significant portions of the population lack access to safe drinking water. This lack of access to clean water leads to water-related diseases and even deaths, particularly from contaminated water resources. Pollution from mining, farming, and industrial operations. Meaning, these activities like mining, farming, and industrial operation contribute to water pollution, especially in countries with inadequate legislation and oversight. Chemicals from detergents and other products also pollute rivers, lakes, and seas, posing risk to ecosystem and human health. Water scarcity as a global issue. The text emphasizes that water scarcity is not only a problem in developing countries but also in the developed world. It highlights the cultural and educational aspect related to water conservation and the need for awareness of the severity of the issue. Given the vast disparities in water availability. Lastly, the impending water shortage and potential conflicts. Studies suggest that if immediate action is not taken, there could be an acute water shortage in the coming decades. This shortage would have severe environmental consequences, affecting billions of people. Furthermore, the control of water by multinational corporation could become a significant source of conflict in the 21st century. Overall, these key points highlights the depletion of natural resources, the decrease of fresh water drinking, and the challenge of water poverty and pollution, the global nature of water scarcity, and the potential consequences and conflicts associated with inadequate water management.
Let us move to the chapter 3, the loss of biodiversity. First, depletion of Earth's resources and loss of species. Short-sighted economic and manufacturing policies have led to the depletion of natural resources on Earth. The destruction of forests and habitats has resulted in the extinction of numerous species that could have been valuable resources in the future. This loss of biodiversity is irreversible and impacts the overall health and functioning of ecosystems. Second, human-induced extinction and loss of irreplaceable beauty. Human activities are responsible for the extinction of thousands of plant and animal species annually. This loss not only affects charismatic animals but also crucial components of ecosystems such as fungi, algae, worms, insects, reptiles, and microbes. Human intervention in nature, often driven by attempts to address issues, can create a negative feedback loop where intervention exacerbates the problems, leading to a less diverse and vibrant world. Third, neglecting biodiversity in development projects. When evaluating the environmental impact of development projects, the focus is often on soil, water, and air, while the impact on biodiversity receives less attention. Infrastructure projects like highways, plantations, and dams can destroy natural habitats and disrupt the migration patterns of animals. Lack of foresight and consideration for biodiversity conservation leads to ecosystem imbalances and loss of species. Fourth, importance of protecting biodiversity hotspots. Some governments have taken steps to establish protected areas on land and in the oceans, recognizing the significance of areas rich in species diversity. Regions like the Amazon and Congo basins, as well as aquifers and glaciers, are vital for humanity. Destruction of these habitats not only results in the loss of countless species but also negatively impacts the environment, leaving behind barren landscapes. Fifth, uncontrolled fishing and pollution affecting marine life. Unregulated fishing practices and pollution have detrimental effects on marine ecosystems. Overfishing and destructive fishing methods lead to the extinction of species, including vital components of the ocean food chain like plankton. Coral reefs, home to a vast array of species, are declining due to a pollution from deforestation, monocultures, industrial waste, and climate change-induced rising ocean temperatures. Last, the need for research and conservation efforts. Investing in research to understand ecosystems and the variables associated with environmental changes is crucial. Each region has a responsibility to take inventory of its species and design protection programs to prioritize endangered species. International agencies and civil society organizations play a vital role in raising awareness and urging governments to fulfill their responsibility to preserve the environment and natural resources. These key points highlight the depletion of Earth's resources, the loss of species and biodiversity. The depletion of Earth's resources, the loss of species and biodiversity, the impact of human activities on ecosystems, the importance of protecting biodiversity hotspots, the threats posed by uncontrolled fishing and pollution, and the need for research conservation efforts to preserve our natural world.
Now, our fourth topic is decline in the quality of human life and the breakdown of society. The first one is the effect of environmental degradation on quality life. Environmental degradation, including pollution and urban chaos, negatively impact people's life. Cities that experience disproportionate and disorderly growth become unpleasant to live in due to issues such as pollution, transit problems, noise, and congested neighbors. These factors contribute to decline in the quality of life for individuals residing in this area. Second is negative impact of existing development paradigm. This article suggests that the expansion and development of the past 2 centuries have not always resulted in integral development or an improvement in the quality of life. Instead, it highlights social dimensions such as technological innovations affecting employment, social exclusion, inequitable distribution of resources, social breakdown, increased violence, drug trafficking, and rising drug use among young people. These factors indicate a decline in the society rather than the progress. The third one is the influence of media and the digital world. The omnipresence of media and the digital world has both positive and negative consequences. While this medium allow communication and sharing of knowledge and affections, they also create a barrier to genuine direct contact with their other emotions, complicities, and personal lives. The article warns that the excessive reliance on digital communication can lead to a lack of wisdom, real connections, and deep understanding of others, contributing of a sense of unhappiness and isolations. Fourthly, lack of wisdom and deep interpersonal relationships. This article highlights the need for self-examination, discourse, and generous interactions between people to cultivate wisdom and deep relationships. However, the prevalence of internet communication often allows for selective and superficial connections, enabling an avoidance or deletion of partnership at will. This shift in communication patterns may lead to decline in genuine interpersonal relationships and hinder growth and understanding. Lastly, is warning against potential negative emotional consequences. While digital media offers exciting possibilities, that the article cautions about the potential emerge of profound unhappiness, a damaging sense of isolation, and lack of connection with other emotions and personal lives. It raises awareness of the need to balance digital communication with meaningful direct interaction to prevent negative emotional consequences. These key points highlights the negative impacts of environment degradation, exciting development paradigm, and the digital world on quality of human life. They emphasize the decline in the livability of cities, social issues resulting from technological advancements, and the loss of genuine interpersonal relationship and the potential emotional consequence of excessive reliance on digital communication. Now, let's discuss the global inequality. First is the impact of environmental degradation on vulnerable populations. The degradation of the environment and civilization disproportionately affects vulnerable communities such as small fishing communities facing water contamination and rising sea levels. These impacts contribute to the disparities in premature morality and conflicts arising from resource scarcity, which are often neglected in global agendas. Second is the lack of awareness and representation of the excluded. Despite comprising the majority of the global population, billions of people facing these difficulties are frequently overlooked in the international political and economic discussions. The essay emphasized the physical and emotional disconnect between professions, opinion leaders, media, and centers of power in wealthy urban areas and the concerns of the poor, leading to a lack of understanding and biased assessment of reality. The third one is addressing inequality through population and resource distributions. The essay challenges the notion that reducing birth rates is the solution to poverty and inequality. It highlights that the need to address unequal population and resource distribution, arguing that population growth can be compatible with holistic and shared development. Blaming people increase alone obscures the selective and excessive consumerism that perpetuates the current distribution paradigm where a minority enjoys unsustainable consumption patterns. Fourth is ecological debt and international relations ethics. Inequality extends beyond individuals to entire countries, necessitating ethical consideration in international relations. The concept of an ecological debt arises from imbalance in trade and resource consumption, causing harm to developing countries. The export of raw materials, wasting dump, and pollution by companies operating in less developed nations contribute to human and environmental liabilities including unemployment, deforestation, and pollutions. Lastly, the repayment of ecological debt and unsustainable development. The industrial world has a responsibility to contribute to repayment of the ecological debt by reducing non-renewable energy use and assisting poorer countries in the implementing sustainable development policies. Lack of resources and capacities in the poorest regions hinders their ability to adopt environmentally friendly practices. Recognizing climate change as a shared obligation, efforts should be made to support sustainable development and acknowledge the interconnectedness of humanity. These key points emphasize the impact of environmental degradation on vulnerable populations, the need of representation and awareness of marginalized communities, the importance of addressing inequality through population and resource distribution, the concept of ecological depth in international relations, and the significance of sustainable development and collective responsibility in combating the global quality. Now, let's go to the weak responses. Number 1. Lack of culture and leadership in addressing the environmental crisis. The essay highlights the absence of cultural and leadership qualities necessary to confront the environmental catastrophe. This includes a failure of a global summits on the environment and a lack of progress in implementing effective controls and combating corruption. Economic interests often take precedence over the possible management of natural resources. Second, ineffectiveness in shifting consumptions behaviors. Despite growing environmental consciousness, there has been little shift away from detrimental consumption behaviors. The increased use of air conditioning is cited as an example. Economic organization and technology often sideline environmental considerations that are deemed irrelevant to immediate economic interests. Third, legitimation of a global system prioritizing financial gain. The current global system, driven by speculation and pursuit of financial gain, is legitimized by economic powers. This prioritization degrades the impacts of human dignity and natural environment, leading to potential resource depletion and future conflicts despite international treaties prohibiting welfare involving chemical, bacteriological, and biological weapons. Fourth, resistance from powerful financial interests. Efforts to anticipate and resolve conflicts stemming from resource scarcity are often hindered by the powerful finance interests that resist such initiatives. Political leaders need to pay more attention to addressing the root cause of conflicts, but financial interests can be resistant to change. Last one is the surface level improvements of complacency. While there are positive examples of environmental improvement in some countries such as river cleanups, reforestation, and advice in non-polluting energy production and public transportation, there is a concern about the rise of a superficial or fake ecosystem. This creates a sense of compliancy and encourages that continuation of unsustainable lifestyle and production and consumption methods. This key highlights the lack of culture and leadership in addressing the environmental crisis, the persistence of detrimental consumption behaviors, the prioritization of financial gain over environmental concerns, the resistance from powerful financial interests, and the danger of compliancy in the face of surface level improvements.
Now let us move to part 7, a variety of opinions. First, diverse perspectives on the environmental crisis. The essay highlights the emergence of various methods and trains of thought concerning the environmental situation and potential remedies. Two extreme positions are mentioned: those who believe that new technology will solve ecological problems, and those who view human interventions as a threat and advocate for their reduction and prohibition. Second, need for viable future scenarios. Between the two extreme positions, there is a call for the development of viable future scenarios. It is suggested that the Church does not need to take a firm stance, but rather engage in the exploration of these scenarios.
The recognition that things are reaching a tipping point is emphasized, indicated by rapid changes, degradation, and the occurrence of large-scale natural disasters and social and financial crises. Third, unsustainability of the current world system. The essay argues that the current world system is unsustainable from multiple perspectives. There is a concern that the aims of human action have been disregarded, indicating a lack of critical thinking about the consequences of our actions. These key points highlight the existence of diverse opinions on the environmental crisis, the need for the development of viable future scenarios, the recognition of a tipping point in environmental degradation, and the acknowledgement of the unsustainability of the current world system.
What may be expressed or inferred purpose of the key points on the expected behavioral change of the target audience? The Encyclical Laudato Si tackles the interdependence of environmental, social, and economic crises, emphasizing humanity, urgent need to confront the ecological disaster. The key point on expected behavioral change in Chapter 1 are likely intended to inspire the target audience, primarily Catholics, but also intended for a broader audience, to reflect on their current behaviors and make changes to better care for the environment and promote sustainable development. Here are some important points. Presumed purposes. The main points might attempt to raise awareness among the target audience regarding the present situation of the environment, such as ecological deterioration, biodiversity loss, and harmful impacts of human activities on the earth. Second, foster a feeling of responsibility. The goal may be to inspire individuals to appreciate their roles as stewards of the earth and to recognize the effects of their actions on future generations and vulnerable populations. Third, encourage a value change. The major arguments may argue for a move away from a strictly anthropocentric, human-centered worldview and toward a more ecocentric or biocentric approach, highlighting the intrinsic value of all living creatures and ecosystems. Fourth, encourage a sustainable lifestyle. Expected behavioral changes may include reducing consumption, promoting renewable energy sources, and reducing and recycling waste, supporting local and organic food production, and embracing a simpler, less materialistic lifestyle. Fifth, promote inclusive approaches to sustainable development. The key point may emphasize the importance of addressing environmental issues alongside social justice concerns, recognizing and disproportionate impacts of environmental degradation on marginalized communities, and promoting inclusive approaches to sustainable development. Lastly, is encourage collective action. The goal may be to inspire individuals to band together, collaborate, and lobby for policies, reforms, sustainable practices, and environmental preservation at local, nation, and worldwide levels. Overall, the key points on expected behavioral change are likely intended to inspire the target audience to make individual and collective changes to foster a more sustainable and world aligning their action with the ecological integrity and social responsibility principle outlined in Laudato Si.
State your group's reaction or criticism to the point raised in the chapter assigned to your group. The first, critical environmental and ethical concerns. The chapter highlights the importance of addressing environmental issues and ethical considerations. It emphasizes responsible stewardship of the environment, sustainable practices, and the need to protect vulnerable groups. Second, various facets of the environmental disasters. The chapter covers multiple aspects of the environmental crisis, including pollution, resource depletion, population imbalance, and the negative impacts of human activity on the earth. It recognizes the interconnectedness of these issues and their implication for both the environment and society. Plus, critique of the chapter. The lack of a clear and consistent point of view, the absence of a structured agreement, and insufficient integration of ethical frameworks are identified as areas of improvement. The chapter could benefit from a more cohesive structure, deeper exploration of ethical theories, and the inclusion of supporting evidence to enhance the credibility of the arguments. In conclusion, while the chapter addressed significant environmental and ethical problems, it is suggested that a clearer, structured, deeper examination of ethical frameworks and the inclusion of supporting data would strengthen the overall arguments presented.